You guys ready for a jog? Anybody want to go running? No one? No one? Thank you guys so much for being here. They're already up here, but I would like to introduce. Oh, we're not starting the Q&A yet. We're gonna make small talk
instead.
We're still
saying hello.
Thanks for staying, guys.
We will not talk.
Did you guys
now
enjoy it?
Oh, it started now. We are now live, everyone. Woo, live TV.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
My name is Sarah.
And I'm Brandy, and welcome to Forever Fest and our screening of Maze Runner.
We are here with Wes Ball, the director of Maze
Hello.
Runner, and James Dashner, the author of Maze Runner. And I need to catch my breath because here in Austin we just watched the movie and it was like intensities. I need to breathe.
That's right.
I was on the edge of my seat, and that was I don't know how many times I've seen it, but
And you know what happens.
it gets better every time.
That's good.
And it was
Thanks,
your
Sam.
family's first time seeing it with you tonight, too, right?
Yeah, today was pretty special. My family's here, and they saw it. Yeah, they're waving
Hi,
over there.
guys.
So they saw it for the
Hello.
first
All
time
right.
today, and I'll admit I shed a few tears having them with me today. So it was pretty awesome.
Very cool. Okay, well, we're going to kick this off. Wes, we wanted to start with you.
Cool.
Can you tell us how you came to be involved with the project and get started with it?
Yeah, so I got started because I made a little short called Ruin. It was this little animated kind of action short that I made, and oh, right, I got a fan over
Got some
there.
applause.
And so I kind of did the bottled water tour of Hollywood off of that short, and I wound up at Fox, and they were interested in kind of my plans for the larger story of Ruin. And at one particular, well, it was interesting because when I was talking to them, I had made the thing for a big screen. You know, I made it for full surround sound. I made it in stereoscopic 3D, and I'd never seen it that way. I'd only seen it on my computer screen. And so they were very nice and said, "You got to come back, and we'll put it up in the big theater on the Fox lot, and we'll make a big thing out of it." So they invited a bunch of producers out, and I got to see my little short on this massive thing, the way it was supposed to be seen, with all this great sound and in stereo and everything. And then it was after that screening, they kind of pulled me aside, and one of the junior executives at the time, she's now a full executive over there, her name's Daria, she gave me this little book and said, Maze Runner, and she said, take this home, read it, and tell us what you would do with it. And so I immediately read it, and immediately a shot popped in my mind, and I went in and grabbed all my old assets for Ruin and made this little tiny concept image using all the, because it's very similar kind of textures, overgrown concrete and stuff like that. So I made this one little special image that, for me, just kind of unlocked the movie for me, the tone, the kind of vibe, the kind of the grittiness of it all. And I kind of showed them what that little piece of artwork along with a few others I had made, told them what I would do with the actual, with the script, and then they said, great, you're our director, let's do this. And from there, it was...
That sounds easy. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody could have done it. He got
Right.
Yeah.
And to little cherry on the top, 2 days later after that, I actually sold Ruin to them too. So that's in progress too. So it was like a dream come true. I hit the lottery for sure.
Twofer.
Yeah, crushed it.
And so we
That's
put
awesome.
Ruin on the shelf for a bit and started making Maze Runner. So
We're the ones who hit the lottery because you nailed it, brother.
Oh, you're gonna make
Isn't
us
that
cry,
sweet?
James.
it wasn't
that
just me though. It was an amazing cast. I think you all. I'm sure there's fans here of our cast, and it was an awesome crew. I mean, it was a really tough shoot. It was like 42 days and 8 weeks basically, and a pretty small budget for what we're trying to achieve. And it was a great kind of team effort to come in and make James's book come to life. It was a lot of fun.
So, James, how involved were you with the filmmaking process, the casting? What was your role?
Lucky for me, Fox just made me feel like part of the family from the very beginning. I'll never forget when the producers called me and we had this big phone call and they said, we're totally serious about this. We're moving forward. We have this amazing new young director. He's going to call you in about an hour. So sure enough, Wes called me an hour later.
Were you nervous? It's like getting called for like a
Extremely.
date. It's like,
Yeah.
are we gonna hit it off?
I was nervous.
I was trying to impress him, And,
I think I slipped you some artwork of the Grievers. No one's supposed to know that.
Yes, he would always break the rules and send me cool stuff.
Like passing notes. I
yeah,
love it.
Yeah, but I saw that original picture he made. I saw the Griever concept art, and it just matched my vision so incredibly. But yeah, I consulted on the script. Wes would email me sometimes with questions. I got to visit the set twice. I don't know if you guys noticed my amazing cameo. Anyone notice
no,
it?
Notice it.
No.
Or can you
Whoa,
tell us
There
who
it
it
is.
was, James?
Dagger
'Cause
in my
I
heart.
missed it too. I'm sorry.
I thought it was pretty Oscar-worthy, but so yeah, it's been a fantastic
Whoa,
experience.
whoa, rewind. Where
I
is
know,
your
where
cameo?
is
the Oh, the
we need to
cameo?
know these
At
things.
the very, very end with Ava.
Timestamp that.
I was the most important person sitting at that table at the very end. I was on the left side. Now you have to go see it again, opening night.
Yeah. Next Friday.
Did you get any like acting lessons from the cast or
Wes
any
coached
tips?
me a little
A
bit.
little bit.
But you know, Wes, the first time I visited the set, and you can kind of see his enthusiasm for filmmaking, and he walked me around the whole set, and the whole time he's just kind of like this little kid saying, okay, this shot's going to be right here, and the griever's going to come in, and all this stuff's going to happen. I mean, he just has
I
a
like
vision.
sound effects.
Yes, he does like sound effects. And I knew from that first day that this film was in good hands, so I'm really pleased with it.
So there are some changes from the book and the film adaptation, and especially the romance between Thomas and Teresa. Can you guys talk a little bit about that and those decisions?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, making a movie is very different than what you can accomplish in a book, and really it comes down to visual. You know, anything that we changed, it was about something that I just felt like I couldn't do visually, but we still would always try to keep the spirit of what James was after. In terms of the romance, honestly, even in the book, there's not much romance. So you're kind of hinting at something that hopefully will play up.
Do I look like the kind of guy
in
who
the
writes
next one.
romance?
Totally.
You have a really lovely
Totally.
family.
But it's interesting, you know, like my job here is really to kind of, you know, make a hopeful franchise, essentially. So there's 3 books in this series, and if I have my way, it's very much that. It's 3, it's not 4, beginning, middle, end.
You heard it here, guys. We're gonna hold you to that.
Come
you
back
know,
for every
what's-
screening.
What's great about this first one is it's a setup for, you know, a larger saga, a larger story, and we're working on the next one now, and we get to just continue to explore these characters and look into some of the questions that are still lingering, and just, you know, play in this world that James created. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm a movie fan before book fan. I know that's kind of blasphemous to my readers, but I love movies, and I feel like I have a very strong understanding of translating a book into a cinematic experience. I love what Peter Jackson says about it, and some of my other favorite directors. Whenever someone tries to literally translate a book onto the big screen, it's actually really boring. It's like watching a checklist. Oh yeah, that happens, that happens, that happens. So I was thrilled. I wanted this movie to be a way for people to experience the story in a new way all over again for the first time, but be very true to the spirit of the book and the characters, and I just think they nailed it.
So, James, on that note, now that you've seen the story on the big screen several times, is there any scene or moment in the book that the film made you view differently when you saw it on the screen?
Well, the grievers, I mean, I'll just say it, they're way better in the movie than they are in the book. You know, most people say, oh, the book is so much better in the movie. This will be the first time people are like, oh, that movie is so much better in the book. But no, the grievers, I just feel like they are bigger and scarier and just better than I described them in the book, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
But, you know, and talking about the grievers, like it was a challenge, you know, trying to come up with a visual for those things. But I took all your keywords: biomechanical, slug, your metal appendages, you know, spines, all those kinds of things. So it's in there. It's just a interpretation.
It's definitely not a complaint. I would not change a thing. They're better than the book. That's all there is to it.
I'll take that.
So we noticed that you guys were shooting on location in Baton Rouge. Can you talk about just some of the thoughts about shooting in studio versus on location, and you know what you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of a background in VFX, and the biggest thing is you just don't want to do blue screen shots. You know, you want to be out in a real environment with real actors and real sun and real heat and the pressure of the sun dropping down, you know, you're losing your hours in the day, and that adrenaline kind of winds up, you know, in the scenes, you know, and so it was really important for us to create a real glade, and we really did that, and it took us a long time to find that location. We scouted a million, I mean, maybe not a million, but probably dozens and dozens of cow pastures, essentially. We were about to pick one cow pasture, and we got kicked out because they had to move their huge herd of like hundreds of cattle into this place, so we lost that location at the last hour. And we had to go out and do this crazy, you scour the kind of countryside for this really great little location that we needed for the glade, and we found this place. I took James on a tour of the area the same way that I found it. This farmer out there who just had this little field, and we drove up to this place, and there's a bunch of trees, and I'm like, this isn't really what I was expecting, guys. Like, no, you haven't seen it yet. And we started walking through these little woods, down a little embankment, and then suddenly you emerge in this little glade, and it felt like the glade. It was amazing, actually. And what was so cool about it was that there was a tree line, essentially. It made it almost a perfect little square. And it felt like, psychologically for the actors and everything, these trees almost acted like walls. And so we knew immediately that was the place. And it was a little difficult because we scouted it in it was like February or something. So all the trees were bare, and it was very difficult to kind of picture. But we just trusted that by the time we started shooting, it would all be this lush green environment that we kind of all imagined. And yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. It was a lot of hard work. It was real sun and real sweat. All that sweat on their face and everything in their hair, that's real. That's not makeup.
It looked awesome.
And exactly. Well, that was the thing going into this thing. It's like we were not going to make some little bubblegum kind of, teeny bopper movie. We were going to make a real movie with like real action and adventure and young people dealing with very adult circumstances, essentially. So we wanted to be kind of gritty and raw and handheld but not shaky cam. Heavy handheld. It's a very big difference. Yeah. But yeah, it was fantastic, and I think location work is my favorite stuff. We did do some stuff in the stages, and I'm just not a fan of stage work. There's something about being out there on location for real. It's with all the snakes and the bugs and all this great stuff. It just adds to the movie, and I think it shows up. A
guy got bit by a snake and taken to the hospital.
That's right. So I called them the original gladers, essentially. We had a construction crew out there on the glade, and they would source all of because basically, it was another little change from the book, I guess, that there weren't any houses that were supplied to the kids. I really loved the idea that these kids were kind of thrown into this place, and they were left to their own devices to come up with their own thing. So they created their own society out of the existing resources they had inside this place. I thought that was kind of a cool kind of little tweak on what you had created. And so, yeah, basically our construction crew basically lived out there for a period of a month or two, just building all these little huts and these amazing little places in the glade. And it was, for the most part, pretty much laid out exactly like you would have a real glade laid out. And one of our guys was out there, chopping some stuff down, and he got bit by a little baby rattler. And what's scary about that is that the baby snakes, they haven't learned how to control how much venom they pump into these things. So what's really scary is they can just dump it all into your leg, and your leg falls off.
Did you suck it out?
Great, that's great.
That's right. Fortunately,
Please tell me you saved his life.
I wish. Fortunately, it was called a dry bite, so basically it didn't do anything. So he had two little puncture wounds, and we took him to the hospital, and he was all checked out. Everything's cool, and he went back and started building them back to work, basically.
That dude's a bro.
That's right.
Was the cast just like, okay?
I told him he better watch out. Instead of grievers, they had like snakes and bugs to deal with. So like I said, it adds to it. I said use it.
There's some great videos out there of Kaya and Will and everyone talking about the snakes and the bugs and the.
Honestly, for me, the worst thing were these horse flies. I mean, they're like it's this big, and you'd be sitting there at night, and all of a sudden, you feel like you got stung by a griever.
They totally bite.
Oh, they're huge, and yeah, it was cool though.
Texas people know about horseflies.
That's right.
When you guys were in the area, did you find any local hangouts? Any good local Louisiana spots?
Well, where the glade is, you're an hour away from anywhere, so there were no local hangouts really. But we were on this really cool little golf course resort almost. So there was this little vacation for the cast really, and it was fantastic. They became a little family together, and they immediately hit it off. I kind of put them through a little boot camp like a week or so before, where I brought out like an Army Ranger, and I taught them how to, all these city kids, because I was a Boy Scout. I knew kind of the outdoors, but I wanted them to get dirt under the fingernails and just learn how to hold a machete and make fire and just do things, you know. So they kind of immediately bonded, and it was really fun to go out there at the end of the day, you know, after this really tiresome, 14-hour day, and they're just sitting on the porch of this little, like, very Louisiana style, like ranch, like hotel basically, and they're just out there just chatting on the porch, having a good time, and lights going down. It was really beautiful. It was fantastic, and but they became this little family and would cook for each other, and just they kind of made their own places, I guess, where they could kind of hang out and just be friends in a family.
I skipped the boot camp.
Yeah.
Smart
So did
move.
I.
Smart move.
That
I'm
was-
like, I'm never gonna be in a movie with you. Like, there's no way.
Well, and then wanting to hold a machete and all these things, I'm like, you might need to come to Fantastic Fest,
Yeah.
our sister festival.
Sweet. I'll do it.
Did you get to visit the set much, James? Tell
Yeah,
us about that.
I went out right before they started filming. That's when Wes gave me the full tour, and I mean, you can imagine, as much as I love movies, just being on any movie set for the first time would have been spectacular. But the fact that it was based on a book I wrote was just ridiculous. I mean,
That's mind blowing.
We have it. I think it'll probably be on the DVD. We have like cameras out there, and I was touring him through this place, what he's talking about, and it was cool.
yeah, we had a blast, and they really did a good job of matching how I pictured things. So that just made it all the more fun.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience. So just so you guys know, there's a microphone right here. So if you have a question, you can start lining up, and I'll turn it over to y'all in just a minute.
Oh, they're ready.
All right, ready to go. So just one more question. Obviously, there was boot camp. There was horseflies. I want to hear a great story from the set. Something embarrassing, a prank, whatever.
That you
Give it to
haven't
me.
told anybody else but us here tonight.
Well, or, yeah. Okay.
Good
Yeah, I want an
question.
exclusive.
Man.
How about that one dude who died on the set?
Oh, yeah.
That sounds real good.
Let's not.
I mean,
He made
kinda
us
sad
angry.
too. Kind of sad.
No. Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. Good question.
Tell him, didn't they always do pranks on each other?
Yeah, I mean, they're always doing pranks, basically. That's what's funny about those guys. They had such a good time with each other, but I'm not even privy to all the stories that the pranks that they would do to each other.
What about the one when they all first met Kaya?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about Kaya is she's a very tough girl. She's stronger than most of the guys. And they all talk about how the first time that they met her, where they're out throwing a football or something like that, and there's this girl in a leather jacket, and very kind of exactly just this tough chick, and they kind of they throw the football to her, and she's like catches it one hand, and like just chucks it back, and yeah, it was cool. I'll have to think about whatever kind of story.
We'll come back.
Come back to it. I'm sure someone
When you think of it, let us know tonight before
will.
we leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
So let's
pressure's
turn
on.
over to the microphone. If you guys that have questions could do me a favor and say your name. And then because we want to answer as many questions as possible, please keep your questions short. If that would be great. Okay.
And make them real questions, please.
No pressure.
You can
Is
move
the
it down.
You have to be
microphone
really
on?
tall. You're disqualified.
Is it on? Oh, we're gonna get it turned on real quick.
Or else just speak really loudly.
No, we need it on.
Hey, yeah,
there we
1,
go.
2.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Hi, Abby.
I loved your books so much. I
Aw,
read all
thank
of
you.
them.
Thank you.
So, how did you come up with the concept for the Maze Runner?
The Maze Runner, I think it was starting to develop way back when I was a kid, and I saw the movie The Shining, which I'm sure most of you have seen. Yes, I was a kid
You've seen that,
watching
right,
The
Abby?
Shining.
I haven't.
And
It's terrifying.
it scarred me for life. But at the end of it, this crazy dude's chasing his son through a maze, this big garden maze, and it's snowing. It's one of the greatest, creepiest scenes I've ever seen. And mazes have always fascinated me. I love going to corn mazes. I mean, there's just something about them. And then Lord of the Flies. I had to read that in high school, and I absolutely loved that book. And then I also loved the TV show Lost. And I think it was about season 2 when I was writing Maze Runner. And I think you can see the influence of all that in Maze Runner, and it just kind of all came together.
I love all those inspirations.
Except the Grievers are way cooler than the Smoke Monster. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
All right, who's next?
Hi, I'm Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Hello, Grace.
My question is, why was the spelling of Wicked changed for the movie?
Oh boy.
Oh.
Let me answer because you always get the.
Go ahead.
People always beat you up about that.
I'll take it.
I have absolutely zero problem with that because visually, WCKD just looks cooler. When it's stamped on a box, it looks something like a corporate logo or something. It still stands for the same things. I just think it was a good move.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the first changes that popped in our heads, honestly. I blame one of my friends who kind of offered the idea, essentially. But I just felt it was more interesting, I thought there was something a little less cute about it, It felt a little more mysterious in a way, but who knows?
I think in the visual medium, the more subtle you can be, it's better. In the books are just different, and on the big screen.
That was one of the first things that kind of leaked out, and there was an uproar, from the fans, and I was like, oh crap, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't have changed that, but yeah, I think it like James says, it still says Wicked, it's still all the same stuff, it's just visually a little different, I suppose.
Great.
But if you notice,
really...
when I do put the stamp in there, I do put these little slices down the middle, so it looks like there's eyes.
Grace, are you cool with the change?
Yeah.
She's
All
cool
right,
with
thanks,
it.
Grace.
was awesome.
Grace approves. It's good.
Anything's good.
All right, who's next?
I'm Emma, and was it
Hi, Emma.
how hard was it choosing the different scenes for the movie from the book?
To what?
How hard was it changing the scenes, choosing them from the book and putting them in the movie?
Well, when I first came on, to the movie, I put out a little tweet to people, and by that point, people had kind of known that I was going to be directing the movie, and I asked the fans, "What are your favorite scenes from the book?" Just to make sure that I was already a fan of the book, so I knew the key scenes that people would want to see, but I wanted to make sure. So, all the scenes I think or most of the scenes at least that fans are expecting from the book are in this movie, in some shape or another, And the hard part after that was just figuring out how to execute those scenes so that there's a sense of momentum that you need for a movie. That there's a thing about the shape to essentially sequences and scenes and how you kind of keep people on the edge of your seat and create this kind of roller coaster experience that we wanted to have. And it was about that kind of almost kind of slow crawl up, and it just escalates until finally we get to the end where it just cuts to black and off to the next movie. So that was really the challenge, really more than anything, was just figuring out how to kind of instill that sense of momentum and sort of pace, the kind of ups and downs, because you really need scenes in a movie that are both really intense, but you also need the really quiet stuff too, so you have the contrast between the two. Otherwise, if it's all out of 10, it doesn't mean anything unless you have the kind of really soft stuff down below too. So that was really the challenge, I think.
Yeah, in a book you may read over a few days, but a movie you watch it in 2 hours. And I thought they did a really great job of figuring out that perfect, what'd you call it? Is there a word for it?
Momentum, the shape,
Yeah, because, I thought he took the whole thing with Ben and, Ben wigging out and the whole banishment thing. It was a perfect place and a perfect time in the movie that we needed some heightened tension and suspense. Where in the book, it's more of just kind of a narrative. So that's a really good example of how they transform this into a movie, I think.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I like your skeleton hoodie.
Nice. What you got?
Hi, my name is Jack.
Hey,
Hi,
Jack.
I was wondering how you made the walls.
Oh, yeah. So the walls were probably one of the biggest challenges, actually, of making the movie. Because obviously we can't build 150-foot stone walls. There's no way we could afford it. So, a big part of it was, we had a fairly small budget for this movie, and we couldn't have every single scene have a giant VFX shot in it. So it was about kind of choosing our shots where we would show that the walls exist and then kind of shoot scenes against the trees, essentially. So, all the walls are CG, but we did build the door set that was about 20 feet high and about maybe 50 feet across. It was a massive set out on the stage, which you'll probably see behind the scenes pictures of it, but it was nowhere near what it was actually going to become. So yeah, the walls were interesting, you know, and when I came up with the design of them being sort of like these columns essentially, rather than this one smooth wall, it created a little bit of a challenge because there's sort of texture and shape that we have to deal with. But again, that's where that where I mentioned earlier with the idea of the tree line, essentially, that kind of guides where the wall goes. It gave us all a frame of reference for where those walls were going to fit in, and then we just slipped the walls behind visual effects. And you know, I should thank my VFX crew, you know, from everyone at Method Studios. You know, I think they did a really stellar job with what we had to kind of work with, and you know, Sue Rowe and Eric Brevig and the whole team over there at Method. I think they did a really good job.
Thanks, Jack.
You're the man, Jack.
So I have a question. The cast in the film is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean,
It really rests on their shoulders.
I'll
the
be
movie.
honest, like, out of all the YA film adaptations, I think this is the strongest cast. I really do. So I want to know a little bit about the process of the casting and sort of, did you know who you wanted to work with?
Yeah, I mean, so right away, I saw Kaya, you know, as Teresa. I was a fan of Skins, and for some reason, she popped right in my head. So when I came on, I told the studio I wanted Kaya, and I also wanted Will as Gally, because I knew he was a good actor, but it was those eyebrows, man. He's like, he's the perfect, you know, guy. But what's so funny about Will is that he's probably the antithesis, more than any other character in the movie, to the character he plays. He is the sweetest, nicest guy you will ever meet on the planet, and he plays this kind of antagonistic, you know, kind of bully character. So those two were immediate for me, and then after that, it was just, you know, I think, James, you had a very distinct kind of, you know, description of who these characters were, and it was just about finding people that kind of fit that, but were also good actors. That was the first thing that we talked about with me and Denise, our casting directors. We're looking for good actors first and faces second. If that makes sense? And so that's when we found Ki Hong, and we found Amel to play Albie, and then Thomas Brody Sangster is fantastic in the movie. You know, he's probably a little different than what you described in the book, but I think you know, he's such a good actor, and the challenges he was given in the movie, which is a lot of exposition essentially, he delivers it so fluently, and it's probably the accent too. There's something about that accent you can just listen to, you know, read a phone book or something. And then, you know, Dylan was the last person we cast. Yeah, that was, you know, obviously he was our star, you know, and who was going to be our Thomas was the big kind of stressful thing. And I saw a lot of Thomases, and fortunately, you know, I found Dylan, who, thank God, because I mean, the guy's fantastic.
James, like, out of all of them, is there, not to pick favorites, but is there one that really, when you saw, you were like, this is exactly what I pictured?
Definitely the one who really leaps out to me that just, I feel like they plucked him out of my brain, is Chuck.
Good. I was about to say something about Chuck. You know,
Yeah.
what's cool about Blake is that, you know, we were looking for all these Chucks, and I had all these different auditions, and I was looking at, you know, standard kind of actors that the agents send and from the town, and there was this kid on Twitter that just kept bugging me. And you know, he said, "I'm your Chuck. I'm your Chuck. You know, look at me." And I'm like, okay, kid. You know, it's like do your audition tape and send it over to Denise, and you know, leave me alone. You know. And then Denise calls me up the next day and she says, "Oh my God, you have to watch this kid. He's amazing." And so, unfortunately, I mean, he became Chuck, and I mean, he's absolutely perfect. He's 12 years old in the movie. I mean, it's like how sophisticated and how mature he was. It was such a blessing for us. But unfortunately now, because that story has gotten out, I have 100 people every day asking me to cast them in the next one, you know?
Yeah, I have a video you should watch later.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to get a lot of tweets tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chuck was great.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Man.
Chuck, I mean, it's almost just uncanny how perfectly he matches.
I mean, for me, it was Goonies, man. I mean,
yeah.
I grew up on Goonies, so
He's
all
like
I saw Chunk, you know?
Did you ever
That's
make him
right.
do the truffle shuffle on set?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
right. He
when
wouldn't know what it was. He's like, "What's that?"
When I wrote the book, I mean, there was absolutely no doubt whatsoever when I wrote it. It was Chunk mixed with Piggy from Lord of the
that's
Flies.
right.
Love it.
All right, so we're near the end, so we're down to the wire about the anecdote from
Oh, yeah.
set.
Crap,
man.
guys, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Any,
Now we
any
already
pranks?
heard the snake story.
You should have just made up something.
Any like wusses from boot camp?
Okay, I've got an interesting story. Okay, it has nothing to do with cast. I know that's what you're all looking for.
No, that's fine.
But there was this one night that we were shooting. It was the most bizarre thing ever. So this was a cow pasture at one time, and there were cow pastures all over this area that we were in, all over the place, and they're all fenced in and all this stuff. And we're shooting on our glade. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. This fog is rolling in. We've got the lights up, and it's this really surreal kind of thing already. And we're shooting basically the scene when the grievers attack. And so, we're talking about grievers that aren't really there, and they're running through the fields. And then all of a sudden, we're shooting, and we hear this, and we look over, and there's a stampede of cows running through our glade because they had broken through some other field far away, and they had run through our tree line essentially, and we're storming into our glade, and we're like, shoot, it's grievers, go, Those
runs were real. People were like, run, and they meant it.
Yeah, that was something that just popped in my head. How about
How'd
that?
you get
I've never
them
told that
out?
story actually.
That's
There
awesome.
you go, you guys are the first.
Well, on that note of cattle, we will end this Q&A. So thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you all
being
for being
here.
here.
Thank
Thanks,
y'all for
guys.
watching.
Check
Check out Maze Runner.
next Friday, right?
Comes
Next
out
Friday,
the
September
19th.
Check it out. Tell your friends.
Check it out.
Hashtag Maze Runner.
Go
Check
see
it out
at your
on
local
IMAX.
Alamo.
Or Alamo. Yeah.
Alamo Draft House. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Hey guys, don't leave. We're gonna take a picture with all you guys.